And this is the Y'all Show with John Rawl. Welcome back to the All Southern program. And we are here continuing our conversation with the barbecue barrister, Matt Heermans. And we have him on to discuss the things that we need to know about in life, more important than maybe a lot of other subjects, and that would be food, delicious food. And one thing that popped up on my radar the other day that it hit me when I heard about this. That's something I've never talked to the barbecue barrister about, and it's about time we just let it all hang out with our buddy Matt Heermans. And Matt, I'm talking about the B word. Are you familiar with the B word?
Whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know, John. I don't know. I'm a pretty clean living guy. Let's see what you're talking about.
Well, I know you like one B word a lot, and that's called barbecue. I'm talking about
Absolutely.
breakfast. We've never really
Yes.
We've never really talked a lot about breakfast, so I've got to ask you, oh barrister of barbecue, what is the Heerman's take on breakfast, and is that something that barbecue lovers can really get into?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, John. It
I'm
really
laughing.
is. Um, I actually did we talked about what I cooked and what we had for Super Bowl Sunday. But actually, the weekend before, I did a big old pork butt. We've certainly spent some time talking about the ever popular pork butt for sure. So I did one of those. It was about a 10 pounder. So as you'd imagine, when you cook a 10-pound pork butt, you're going to have pork for days, unless you got a big giant party of people piling up on sandwiches. So I didn't. We just had a few folks over, and then of course I've got leftover pork butt. So at that point in time, you kind of want to change it up. You want to do some different things with the barbecue, and that's one of the best things about pork, in my opinion. There's so many different things you can do. You don't just have to put it on a sandwich. You don't just put it on a plate, warm it up with some barbecue sauce. Those things are wonderful. That's a great way to eat pork barbecue for sure. But there's so much else you can do with it. What I like to do, and what I did a couple times the last week, now that you mentioned breakfast, and it works for brunch, or honestly any time of the day, but I like a barbecue omelet. And if you like omelets, or even if you like scrambled eggs, it would work the same way. Some people put sausage in the eggs. They make it a little sausage egg scramble. Some people will make an omelet with different types of meat, maybe with some cheese. People put vegetables in an omelet. You can do the same exact thing with leftover pork butt, and it's fantastic. So what I did a couple times, and I was such a big fan of it, I ended up having it for breakfast twice and then for dinner once. So I can give 2 thumbs up. I don't have a third thumb, or else I give it 3. But it's fantastic. Do your eggs. If you know how to make an omelet, just pile up some pork butt, some sharp cheddar cheese into the pan. Cook normally. By the time your omelet's done, you've got a cheesy, creamy, nicely cooked barbecue omelet. I like to top it with a little bit of warm barbecue sauce myself, but also some Crystal or some Tabasco, something to give it a little kick is also perfect for that. But that's a wonderful way to incorporate barbecue. And if you don't want to do an omelet, I will be honest with you. I'm not a chef, so I like to think of myself as having a little bit of cooking expertise, but I'm not a chef. I can screw up an omelet. I can mess it up, and what they say is one bad flip from an omelet, then you're having scrambled eggs. That's perfectly fine. Put the pork in there, scramble your eggs up. You've got a smoky, meaty, cheesy, delicious scrambled egg. It's awesome. So that is one really good breakfast recommendation if you've got leftover pork butt. So there's one.
Well,
That's
let
a
me let me
great thing
stop you
right
because
there.
I've got to get a little bit more info for those of us who are a little bit
Yeah.
barbecue and pork butt challenged. What exactly are
Okay.
we talking about when it comes to pork butt and breakfast? I mean, is this something that looks just like pulled pork?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Pork butt is that's where you get pulled pork from. You just pull your pork butt apart. So yeah, I should I guess specify when you're talking about pork butt, you're talking about pulled pork. So if you do one, like I say, they're big. You'll almost always have leftovers. That's one really good way to incorporate it into breakfast or brunch, and it's just real tasty.
I've never seen any kind of barbecue item available at breakfast time. And one reason I'm
There you
bringing this
go.
up with you, old barbecue barrister Matt Heermans, is because I saw a recent report about how breakfast is becoming the new it item, and there's some really swanky restaurants in New York and New Orleans that are really more breakfast centric, and they've got these chefs going in making all these fancy dishes. I didn't see anybody doing pork butt, but what do you think about that whole concept of making breakfast something that is available, of course, in the morning time, but you actually can eat those same items all day long?
Yeah, I kind of I've been to places like that before. It's a lot of times it'll be breakfast and brunch. They'll have specials, and yeah, it's something. There's been a trend to kind of jazz up or snazz up or focus more intensely on different meals. And now breakfast certainly gets that treatment. Brunch has been popular for a long time, and that's a favorite of some people like me. It's a little later in the morning. You can usually get lunch items along with breakfast items if you're not in the mood. But yeah, there's a lot more to breakfast than bacon and eggs and pancakes. Not that there's anything wrong with those items; those are classics for sure. But there's a lot of things you can do with it. Me throwing pulled pork barbecue into an omelet is just one way. There's all kinds of different stuff. There's a place in my neck of the woods that does a brisket biscuit, which is kind of a little rhyme, but barbecue brisket put onto a biscuit, melted cheese and gravy over the top of that. That's barbecue for breakfast, and that's a pretty fantastic way to kind of combine barbecue with kind of a traditional Southern breakfast staple, which is a biscuit, particularly a warm biscuit. So there's a lot of different things you can do, particularly with barbecue, whether it's beef or pork. There's kind of an endless opportunity to do stuff like that.
Well, Matt Heermans, I want to ask you, of course, not all of us have the ability that you have to go out in the backyard and cook up a big old pig. That's something we hope to do one day. Maybe we're not quite there. But if we're not able to have the big grill and have the kind of unbelievable feast that you have with the pork butt and such, is it something that you could go and buy some cooked pork butt, pork barbecue at your
Yeah.
local grocery store and such and pull off the same breakfast omelet with the pork butt?
Well, I say you can buy stuff like that at a grocery store that's pre-made. Although I would probably never recommend doing that. I don't know. It's an interesting deal. It's mostly barbecue sauce. There's other stuff in there besides meat. I don't know. I wouldn't vouch for that type of thing. But what I would recommend is go into your local barbecue joint. I guarantee wherever you are, from Texas to Virginia, Florida to Arkansas, and everywhere in between, you can find a barbecue joint where you can load up, a couple pounds of pork butt or maybe horse ribs, but brisket as well. A lot of places have that if you're interested in that. But yeah, just go load it up that way. It's going to serve you a lot better than getting it from a local barbecue joint. It's going to serve you a lot better than buying something out of a tub at a grocery store that's questionable at best. And that's my barbecue snob coming out. But I can't stand. I got to stand behind something I believe in, and I don't like the stuff out of the tub.
I see. Well, let me ask you, if you do go to your local barbecue place and buy that kind of pork barbecue, what is your best recommendation for their shelf life? Do these things last in a refrigerator for a couple of days, couple of weeks? Do you have to immediately freeze it? What's the deal, old barbecue barrister?
Yeah, it's already cooked, so you don't have any issue with it, going bad as like you would raw meat or getting freezer burn or anything like that. It's good for a few days. Absolutely. I'll do a pork shoulder as long as you keep it covered. You put it in a little Glad container or even with foil on a pan. As long as you keep it covered, you don't want any of that like refrigerator taste getting in there with it. But no, it's good for a few days. Absolutely. You can warm it up. Now, I will say this. Anytime you've got meat generally, barbecue, whether it's leftover ribs, whether it's leftover pork shoulder, pork butt, whether it's brisket, doesn't matter what it is. You just want to stay the heck away from a microwave. That's always going to dry your meat out. It's going to make it chewy. It's really easy to destroy even really good barbecue meat with a microwave. So it's very easy and very tempting. But I would say use a toaster oven or just fire up your regular oven and heat it up that way. It's going to be much better. It's going to retain its texture and its taste a lot more than a microwave, which will give you chewing gum sometimes. So it'll last, but don't use the microwave. That would be my advice.
Well, that's darn good advice. Now, help me. I've had one nightmare that I've had to go through from time to time in my sleep patterns, going back to my childhood and growing up on a farm. We had to work on July 4th back in the day, and one of the only perks we got working on the produce farm was we would get our lunch bought by the company, and all of us field hands would enjoy a nice barbecue feast. Well, at one of those barbecue feasts back in the 1980s, everybody just went to town on this barbecue because you eat barbecue in the South on 4th of July if you're able to, and for whatever reason it was contaminated or something. We all got sick. So what is the barbecue barristers? If you had to go back and be a detective, why would you think that we all got sick with that barbecue?
Well, that's a case for barbecue detective, Sherlock Holmes or something. I would ask, my first question I would ask is, was the barbecue the only thing you ate? Because there's a lot of side dishes usually that come with barbecue. And one of the, and I don't know, again, this is me trying to play detective here, but a lot of times things like potato salad, macaroni salad, stuff like that, has mayo and things like that don't get along with hot weather for a long period of time. So I would say, I guess it's possible that the meat was bad. I'm not sure anything will really survive, a long cook over charcoal when you heat the meat to like 200 degrees, which is what you do. But theoretically, I guess the meat could have been bad or old ahead of time. But I would maybe look to the other culprits. I would maybe look to Colonel Mustard in the corner with the candlestick and the macaroni salad or something like that, because those things can go bad real quick, especially in the heat.
Okay. Well, you presented your case, barbecue defender, and I think we're going to have to stick with you and not try to blame it on the barbecue. We're talking with our barbecue barrister, Matt Heermans. I'm John Rawl. This is the show that's all about the Southeast. We started out this segment kind of discussing barbecue and breakfast, and you've done your best presentation, barrister, on why pork butt would be a great thing for breakfast and barbecue. Is beef barbecue, and all the things that come along with the cow, any of that, is that applicable when it comes to breakfast items?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the same way you would use a pulled pork butt, you could use chopped brisket or even sliced brisket. You could put it on, I mentioned earlier, you could put it on a nice hot biscuit, get a little cheese or maybe some gravy over it. That's pretty fantastic, the brisket biscuit. You could do the same thing with pork butt on a biscuit. You could also do a little pig in a blanket kind of riff, or wrap a pancake around some barbecue, maybe some sliced or chopped brisket as well. That's a nice little pancake taco, if you will. And then, of course, there is a thing, there is a thing called a breakfast taco that people like to enjoy some parts of the region. And, of course, barbecue pork or barbecue beef goes great in a breakfast taco if you like that sort of thing in a tortilla. So, absolutely, I'm a huge fan of barbecue for breakfast. Get the smoke. You get the smoky mouth early in the morning, that's for sure, but it's worth it.
Well, that's the kind of information we knew we could get this out of you, Matt Heermans. I know it wasn't too much of an ask to have you go back and talk about breakfast. I do have to ask a war story from you, sir. What is the earliest time that maybe you've gotten up to do some of this breakfast barbecue grilling?
Wow, I have been up very, very early to start the barbecue smoker, depending on people coming over. I mean, I've actually set my alarm in the middle of the night to get up to get the smoker going. So, I mean, I guess there's a fine line between late at night and early in the morning.
I thought you were going to say a fine line between sanity and insanity, because some of this, what you're talking about, doesn't sound very sane.
That's what you call dedication to the craft. That's one way to put it. But yeah, so very, very late or very, very early, depending on how you want to put that. But I'll do what it takes to get that barbecue done.
Well, you get the medal for sure, Matt Heermans. And as we wrap up again, you've talked about how you can do both pork and your beef for your breakfast items, and it's always a good thing. Like I said, there was a recent story that I found, I think it was on CBS, the CBSN digital component of CBS News, and they did a great feature on how breakfast is becoming this hot item, not just for breakfast time, but all throughout the day. And we've always known people love to go and have breakfast at supper, for example. That's a treat for a lot of people, but to really spice it up and make these fancy dishes, for example, is what I saw being done at a restaurant in New Orleans, and it had a trendy name. I'm sorry, I can't think of it right now. But by the way, Matt Heermans, if you had a trendy restaurant, I know you'd come up with a trendy name. Have you got that in your hip pocket, what it would be called?
Maybe like the pork parade. I'd go old school, some goofy like that. Pork party, the Catalina swine mixer.
Oh,
something like that.
Is that not a great movie?
Oh man, yeah, that's. I've already told everybody that if I ever start a barbecue team, I've already got that name. Nobody else better take it from me. But yeah,
Okay.
Great movie.
Step
Sure.
Brothers is what we're talking about, and I didn't think we would go from talking about breakfast and barbecue to talking about Will Ferrell and John, whatever his last name is. What's his name?
Man, I'm drawing a blank. It's Brennan and Dale. Right?
Brennan and Dale. What a movie about parenting too, as well. And Steenburgen is, I believe, her name, the actress in that, from Little Rock, Arkansas, by the way. Matt Heermans, always fun to catch up with you, our barbecue barrister. And again, go check out these options that we just discussed with Matt about barbecue and breakfast. Yes, you can marry the two. It's a great combination. And listen and pay close attention to what the barbecue barrister told us here today, and you can have an incredible start to your day. Barrister, thank you very much. We look forward to talking to you again down the road.
I can't wait, as usual.
All right, Matt Heermans. Well, that will wrap up today's Y'all Show. Thank y'all for listening. We'll be right back here on Wednesday with Precious Harris, direct from Music Row in Nashville, and ACC Sports Talk as well. On this, the show that's all about the South, this is Y'all.